Let me go now to the pricing. This is a very important slide. How we price a loan. When we want to price a loan, we have to take the loan interest rate. We have to take, this is the loan interest rate, we want to calculate it. So we have to take something called the fees. In each loan, you have to charge a fee, and this fee is a continuous, like the admin work and all these things to serve the loan, they take a fee. And then they take a credit risk premium. What is the credit risk premium? See, if there is no credit risk, like for example, you give to the government loan, this can be the risk-free, which means when you invest in the risk-free, when you invest in treasuries, government securities, they don't default. But then we have something called K, which is the corporate loan. Now, the corporate loans is this business loans which we give it to corporations. Now, this is subject of defaulting. Corporation may lose, may do all those things. So you have to get the difference between K and the I, which is, we call it the premium. This is actually, we call it the premium, this premium. So we have to charge it. So we have to charge a fee, we have to charge a premium, and we have to, we can talk about collateral, if they are giving collateral. Collateral means a security against the loan. And we have to include some other non-price items. So let's talk about the fees first now. So we have what we call loan originating fees, and we have something called compensation balance. Now the compensation balance is actually, I will explain it in a while, but it is actually, if you take a loan of 1 million, if you are a business loan, 1 million ringgit, the bank will ask you to participate in that loan. And usually they will ask you for 10%. If it is 10%, then you have to put 100,000 as participating in that loan, and they will grant you the loan of 1 million. So that compensation balance is actually put in the bank, and they don't give you any interest for that. And this actually, because the loan is counted on 1 million, so the compensation balance is actually, it's like a tax. The bank is taking this money and he's not giving you any interest for it, but they are charging you for 1 million. So in this case, you have to take care of that. And then they have what we call a reserve requirements, which is we give it to the banks when they receive a deposit. They have to give, in this country now, is 2% to the central bank as a reserve. Banks are smart, so they charge us with this R. So if you look now, you have a base lending rate, which is the rate. You have fees, and you have the compensation balance, and you have the reserve requirements. If you want to calculate this, you can come to this formula. So when the bank gave you $1, they expect to receive this $1. This is the dollar. They expect to receive $1 plus K, plus their return. And the return is, if you look at the K, it's the fees plus the basic rates plus M over 1 minus the compensation balance, 1 minus the reserve. But this is what we call contractual. This is when we sign the contract. Did we get it all? The question is no, because this is what you contractual, and what we did in the contract, when the bank actually received is the the probability of payments of those loans, if the probability of all those payments is 95%, so they will expect the expected return is to be the probability of payments of all those loans times the principal plus the interest, minus 1, of course, which is the principal. This is your rate. This is the expected rate. So this formula is actually connected to this formula because the K is this K. So this is the expected return from the K. I want you to know to be aware now by this time by what we call the contractual and the expected return. So this is one issue and this is the second issue. Okay. This is another definition of the compensation balance, minimum deposit that must be maintained in bank account by borrower, agreeing to the compensation balance allows company to borrow money at favorable rate interest. They give you better rates. The compensation balance offset the bank's default risk. It decreased the default risk and can be used to make new loans. The reserve, as I told you, this is just the government statutory reserve requirements in this country. In Malaysia is 2%. It was 4% 2 years ago. Now it's 2%. They keep playing with this, but this has been changed, I think, during the COVID time. Okay. Now, let's look at the example about the contractual, which is actually this formula. I want to calculate this one. And they give you the information here. So if you have the basic rate of 12, M is 2, and the fees is 12.5 basis point. Compensation balance 10%, this 10%. As you can see now, if you calculate it, you will find it to be like this. So actually, also we are telling the customer, you are paying the basic rate of 12% and you are paying us 2% as premium. And we are taking a fee of 12 basis points, but actually, if you collect this 12 plus 2 plus 125, it's less than this one. This is actually 14,125, 14,112.5. But actually, when you calculate it because of this, because they charge us for the reserve, and also because of the compensation balance, if we put it to the formula, which is here, actually this increasing the K, and therefore the K is this amount. Now let me go to the next point. Let me first calculate the expected R, because we talked about the expected R, and I want to calculate the expected R for this one. So if I want to calculate the expected R, I just take this and the probability of payment, if you assume the probability of payment is 95%, then in this case, the expected R is actually 1 plus K minus 1, 4948. See the drop, huge drop, because the probability of payment, 95% of what? 95% of you expect to receive 95% of your rate, of your return, and your principal. This is why we see this huge drop from 15 to this one. Because it's actually a huge drop, because you are losing 5% of the principal and 5% from the return. And therefore, banks have to be careful. Don't charge too much, because some customers will come under some type of, huge demand or stress of demand for loans, because they are under any type of financial distress. So in this case, they will ask for loans and they will accept any rates. So if you think the way we calculate it, you can charge this customer 15%. But actually the expected return, which is this one, this is the expected return, will be like this one. If you look at it, it's here. 1%. But actually then you have to be reasonable in your pricing. And the reasonable of your pricing, it's a utility issue, which means you want to charge here a place where the expected return is the highest. I think it's 7%. If you take it here, it's 6.5. I'm just giving here an example. Here we are talking about, it's not related to our example, but I'm just saying if the rates is between this and this, the best way to charge is here. And this is, of course, will be based in some simulations and regressions and analysis to reach to what is the correct rate. So we finished pricing, we finished the contractual loans, and we have finished the expected loans, expected rate. And we talked also about the some concerns about how much you should charge, and we looked at this chart. Now, let me talk about the control of credit risk. When we talk about wholesale, because we give our loans to businesses, right? We have retail loans and we have wholesale loans. This is the personal loans. And this is the business loans. So business loans and personal loans, we call the business loans wholesale, and we call retail is small loans. So they are small dollar value. They are higher costs associated with collection of information about individuals. Our decision is usually accept or reject decision. And the standard loan rate is usually charged. So we have standard loans for car loans, for housing loans, for credit card loans. They don't differentiate between individuals. But in businesses, we do this differentiation. Now, the wholesale is credit risk is controls, can be done. Bank can use what we call, they can increase, if they want to decrease the quantity of loans given to a business, which is a customer. And this decreasing of the quantity of loans or application by the customer is actually will decrease our credit risk. If we think the customer cannot take more loans, says they will default. So one way to tell them without rejection is to increase the interest rate for the new loans. If they are business and rational, they will stop because they know the rate of return for the projects they will use this loan for is less than the bank interest rates, or it doesn't work with them. So they will stop taking a loan. And sometimes you can just say, okay, this is the roof or the ceilings of my loans to you. If you have reached it, like a company has taken up to 10 million, and they are already high leverage. So in this case, you don't give them any more loans. So there are two methods. Now, for the retail, the person to control it, we cannot use the use of interest rate. They just, retailers are not very rational, like we are rational, but under some type of, if I'm traveling, if I'm buying new computers or trying to do, buy new car, whatever, if they tell me the interest rate is 5%, I will say, okay. 7%, I will say, okay. 10%, I will say, okay. Actually, interest rate is not an issue. They won't charge you 100% at the end, but say it's not a big deal if they increase it. So actually, it's the way to do it is to decrease the credit for these individuals who has taken more loans. So this is just some information about controlling. Now let's go to the models. We have actually You remember when we talked here, we talked about the model. So we are actually now in this area. We are trying to we are talking about the models, which is actually the quantitative and the qualitative models. Let me come to here to the quantitative and the qualitative models. We have linear probability model. This is the map. We have linear probability models. And we have logit model. So we have this one under the quantitative. And all of them are credit scoring. Credit scoring, I will explain it in a while. And we have linear probability models. So actually we have 1, 2, and 3 models here. We have also quantitative models, which means qualitative models, which is actually the information. We have to take care about the reputation of the company. If we are talking, this is a business loans. We have to know their leverage. We want to check their collateral. We want to check their volatility of earning, and we want to see the contracts and the terms and conditions, which we call it covenants. And this is actually to encourage or discourage certain borrower behavior. And we have to take also the borrower specific factors. Now, let me talk to the quantitative models. Also, when we talk about the qualitative models, you want to see, when we talk about qualitative models, you want to see whether we are the business cycle, whether we are in recession or in boom in the economy, because, you know, default is highly associated with recessions. We have also to look at the level of interest rate. Higher interest rate is associated actually with defaulting. So this is so many considerations you take when you give a huge business loans. If you are using this qualitative, which is actually judgmental. But then we have something called the credit scoring models, which depends on the calculation of the company's or the borrower strength, which is the business based on its and their financial reports and financial information. So the rule of credit scoring, I want you to understand the rule of this credit scoring. It's 2 principles. You have to calculate a score, and the model will allow you to credit the score. And you have a benchmark, which you have calculated before. If the score beats the benchmark or higher, you approve the loan. Then you approve the loan. If the score of the customer does not meet the benchmark, then you reject the loan. It's as easy as this. And there is no actually human intervention in this issue. You just, you know, enter the data and click and provide the data to the system, and then the system will give you a results after the analysis. This is one model, and we calculate something called the z-value. Z-value is actually the error, calculating the risk. And this is like a regression model. Don't worry about it. It's a regression model. I will show it to you in a while. See, this is the linear probability model. It's 3 factors. It's 3 factors, actually. It is this one. We calculate something called probability of defaulting, and actually it's factor 1, or x1, x2, and x3. So when you calculate the probability of defaulting, what is x1? Now you look at the financial report. It's debt over equity. What is the volatility? What is x2? It's the volatility of the borrower earning, and you can calculate it from the standard deviation of the earnings. And you can talk about the borrower's profit ratio. So you have leverage, which is this one. you have volatility, and you have profit ratio. This is the three factors you want. So as you can see here, if I have a company that I calculated the debt ratio, the leverage 0.75, volatility, which is a standard deviation, is 2.5, and the profit margin is 10%. Now, to calculate the probability of defaulting, you will find this to be, so there is a probability of defaulting of 2.25%. This is what this one telling me. If I give a loan to this guy, it's 2.5. So if the defaulting is 2.25, then the probability of payment is the rest of the 100%, which is 97.75, which is 100. %, or 1 minus this one, you find it to be this. So in this case, therefore, if the benchmark is, so if you have already put a benchmark, remember, I'm telling you here, you have to calculate the score, which we calculated, and it is 225% of profit of defaulting. Then you compare it to the pre-calculated benchmark. Now, the pre-calculated benchmark is 95. It looks like you will accept this loan because the probability of a defaulting of payment is more than 95%. So actually, we will approve this one. Now, the weaknesses of this, sometimes when we calculate this PD, which should be between 0 and 1, can be out of this range. And which doesn't make sense statistically. So look at this, for example. If the ratio of the debt equity ratio is 1, and the profit ratio is 90%, then in this case, you can calculate this one again. So this is the debt. This is the standard deviation, which we get it from up. And then we have the profit ratio. So in this case, as you can see, it is minus 0.1. So actually, minus 0.1 does not make any sense. If this doesn't make any sense, then in this case, actually, this loan is not approved. It's not approved. This loan is, the model is not correct. And therefore, you cannot actually decide. And therefore, you have to go, you have to see a solution or look for other loans. Now, other models of credit risk. So we go to, this doesn't make any sense because the probability of payment, if we do it now, it is actually 0.01. So there is no sense in this model. It can go out of the range of probability of 0.1, 0, and 1, which is a very rare case. So to solve this problem, we can go to Logit model, which is the second model, or we can go to something called other alternative, include profit, other alternatives include profit and other variant with nonlinear indicator functions. Now, what they are saying, this is actually to what they are trying to do in the Logit model, and this one, which we will not talk about it, they want to restrict statistically the B between 0, the BD, between 0 and 1. And therefore, you solve the problem of, so this logit model and other probit models are trying to restrict the, what we call it, the BD value, which is the probability of defaulting between 0 and 1. So we move to another model called the Altman model. They are calculating the Z value, and it's actually between 181 and 299. So what we do here, this is the model. It's 5 factors. BD, the probability of defaulting model, which is the linear probability model. We just talked about it, which is this one. This is 3 factors. This is 5 factors. So we, and the Z value should be between 1 and 8, 1.81 and Z99. This is actually the benchmark. This is the benchmark. You benchmark here. So the benchmark is actually, sorry, I keep writing using this, it's not a pen, it's just a cursor. Okay, that's a pointer. So, so this is the benchmark. Let me get an example. So if we have a company which we get X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, and X1 is the working capital from the total assets, and we can get it from the balance sheet. Retained earning of total assets, we can get it from the balance sheet. Earning before interest and tax over total asset, we can get it from the balance sheet. And the market value of equity, which we can take it from the market, over the long-term debt, which we can take it from the bank book. And then sales and total asset, sales over total asset, which is X5. Now I can calculate it because we have here a coefficients. The coefficient here is 1.2, so I will put X1 here, and 1.4, 3.3. This is given actually from the publisher of this and the producer of this model, which is coming from the industry. So these are 1.2, 1.4, 3.3, 0.6, and is actually fixed. We just want to plug the values of X1, X2, X3, and X4, X5. So according to the information we have, we find this 3.04, this is the value. And therefore, as you can see, this is actually larger than 2.99. As you can see, as we said here, it should be between 181 to consider it. We call it critical value. But if it is over 299, then you accept it. As you can see here, we accept this loan since it's over 299. So should we accept the loan? We should accept it. Actually, there is some weaknesses about the default risk models. They make broad distinction between borrower categories, which means good and bad borrowers, because the benchmark will tell you whichever under the benchmark is bad, and whichever over the benchmark is good and given the loan. That categorization is actually not really good. The weight, which is this weight, which we call it the coefficient 1.2, 1.4. This is supposed to be a worldwide model. Has to be used all over the banks around all the world, but actually this can be changed from one industry to another industry, from one country to one country. I think this was calculated according to the American environment. This is actually another weaknesses. And the third thing is the variables. Remember, we are using only in the linear probability model. We are using three factors, and here 5 factors. But actually, it could be more and more and more factors to decide. You can bring so many things here. So this one is restricted only to 5 factors. And then the models actually ignoring some other issues like borrower repetition, all those qualitative things, which is, we have seen it here in the qualitative issue. All of those are actually not counted. So when they are not counted, one of them is the reputation, one of them is the economic cycle, the interest rate, and the market, all of those things. So this is the weaknesses actually, and this we have to take care of it. I am done. Thank you very much. And this is the end of part 1. It will stop here, and I will see you in the second part. Thank you, and see you in the second part. Bye-bye.